Hi everyone, welcome back to Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Today's video is a try a chapter tag for Nonfiction November. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name's Alice and I have way too many books, and in the interest of solving the problem continually of too many books, I have sometimes done a try a chapter tag to see if I still want to read some of the books on my shelves. And having selected a TBR for Nonfiction November and shown a bit of a pile of possibilities, I also then found several more books on my shelves that would also have qualified for Nonfiction November. So I did mention in my Nonfiction November TBR that there were a couple of books I was really unsure whether I still actually was interested in reading, and I mentioned that I might do a try a chapter, and I thought I would do that sooner rather than later because I would really like to know whether I want to read those books or not. I will definitely unhaul any books that I definitely don't want to read anymore. And I also need to select a non-fiction book to read next, so I'm hoping to find from this pile something really good to read, because in the first week of Nonfiction November, we're now on the 8th when I'm filming, and the first week I have been reading Poirot, The Greatest Detective in the World by Mark Aldridge, and this book is just amazing. I may do an individual review for this one because I love it. I'm quite far along with this one, hoping to finish early this week, so I would like to know what I might read next for Nonfiction November. I'm going to show you some options. I found 4 more books that I think I might try on my shelves, and I've also got the 3 that I talked about trying in my Nonfiction November TBR. So let's talk about the new ones first. Well, they're not new, they've been on my TBR for a long time. So the first one is a book I actually bought for my husband one Christmas, and I actually found it in a charity shop and thought it would be perfect for him because he likes this comedian and so do I. But I did add it to my own TBR because I knew I would want to read it, and that is James Acaster's Classic Scrapes. I don't know if James Acaster is popular in the US, but here in the UK he's been on several sort of panel quiz shows and things like that, and he's always very, very funny, and we've watched his stand-up. I think that is on Netflix. This is just sort of a series of anecdotes really. And I would really like to get to this because I think it's going to make me laugh. I'm going to read from this maybe 1 or 2 anecdotes and see if that's the book that I want to read next. I don't think this one will be an unhaul, and even if it gets unhauled from my TBR, it will be staying in the house for my husband to read. So book number 2, I think I actually got free with a magazine at some point, and I've actually refound this when I was creating my original Everything on My Giant TBR video, and I thought about unhauling it then and there, but then I think I read a little bit or had a change of heart or became incredibly clingy with the book. I really don't think this needs to be on my TBR. We will see. And that's the Romford Pelé by Ray Parlour. So this is Ray Parlour's autobiography. Ray Parlour was a footballer for Arsenal Football Club in the 90s. When I first got into football, he was playing for Arsenal, I believe. And yeah, he was known as the Romford Pelé by some people, I think. So it's quite a short autobiography, and there are pictures. And I thought I would read a chapter or so to see if I do want to read this or keep it on my shelves. Next up, I would be very unlikely to unhaul this one because it's signed by the author. I did meet this author back in around about 2007 or 8, and that is Join Me by Danny Wallace. I've read 1 book by Danny Wallace, or I think 2 books actually by Danny Wallace, but one was a quick reads, and this one is Join Me. The one I've read was Yes Man, where he decided to say yes to everything. This one is about how he started a cult by accident by placing an advert that just said Join Me, I believe. And I think this was Danny Wallace's first book, and I took it with me when I met him, and he was doing a book reading or a talk or something, and he signed this, and I promptly put it on my shelf and never ever read it. So I would like to get to this one in Nonfiction November, now I've remembered it. So I think I'm going to read a couple of chapters of this and see if it's the next book I want to read. The fourth book that I found is a cat book. I have a couple of cat books and a dog book on my shelves, and this one is really appealing to me at the moment because it's called Dewey, the small town library cat who touched the world. Why wouldn't I want to read a book about a cat and a library? I think I'll try a couple of chapters of this and see if it's going to be my next Nonfiction November read. I'd be highly surprised again if I decide to unhaul this one. So now we make it down to the three that I talked about doing a try chapter on. I obviously have already tried chapters of this in the past because I've read over 100 pages of it, but that was in 2008. So I do think that I should probably attempt to try a chapter again, because I'm not sure I'm going to actually read this book. I'm not sure whether I'm going to read it or not. So this is the story of childhood growing up in modern Britain by Libby Brooks. I'd like to try a chapter or so to see if I want to read this still, or if it can be let go to another good home. We also have, and this is the one out of the two childhood books that I think is more likely to be leaving the house, is Toxic Childhood by Sue Palmer. I'm going to try a chapter of this because I don't think I want to read it anymore, and I would like to see by testing it. So that one I think might be going, I don't know. And the final one, the one that I am least sure about, probably on my entire TBR actually, not just my non-fiction TBR. I really don't know why I've kept this so long, is My Booky Wook by Russell Brand. I'm going to try the first chapter of this. It's in parts and they're quite short chapters, so I might read 1 or 2 chapters to see if I want to read this. If I do want to read it, I need to read it by the end of January because it was on These Books Will Self-Destruct, my list that I made for that. I don't know about this one. So anyway, before I go any further, let me know in the comments, do you think I will be unhauling any of these? Which one do you think I'm going to end up reading? So we have James Acaster, we have Ray Parlour, with Danny Wallace, we have A Library Cat, Russell Brand, Story of Childhood, and Toxic Childhood. So pause the video if you would like to join in and let me know which ones do you think I'm going to keep, which ones do you think I'm going to unhaul, and which one do you think I'm going to read next, my next book for Nonfiction November. When I come back, I will have tried some chapters of some of those books minimum, and I'll let you know how I've got on. Right, I thought I'd give you a quick update. I've read some each of 4 of the books, so I'll give you a quick rundown of what's happened so far. So I've tried Toxic Childhood and I think this needs to go. I definitely would have been interested in this when I was teaching, but the fact of the matter is that then times have moved on. Childhood's probably even more toxic now than it was back in 2006, and I just didn't get the impression this was going to be particularly relevant to me or something that I was going to particularly enjoy. I feel like most of the topics being discussed I've already sort of learned about during my teaching career, during training, and sort of witnessed firsthand with children and the way that changes have happened with childhood over time. So I definitely don't need to read this. It's time to let this go, and I will be unhauling this one. Then I tried The Story of Childhood, Growing Up in Modern Britain, and I was actually really enjoying the introduction to this, and I thought it was a definite keep and read, but I'm not actually sure yet. I might read a little bit more of this and see, or I might just think about it, but I didn't even make it through the introduction because I liked the sound of what the author was setting out to do in the book, but then she started talking in a very sort of historical way, which I wasn't very interested in. I think the concept of this book is really, really intriguing to me though, because she spoke to and spent time with several children and presents like their views on childhood. So I do think I might still want to read this one. So for now, it's getting a stay of execution, but I'll come back to this one when I've read a little bit more, I think. Next, I tried Russell Brand's autobiography, My Booky Wook. I'm definitely going to unhaul this as well. I've thought for some time that this would probably be a book that I would unhaul, but it definitely is. I just think, again, this is now really outdated. Russell Brand has definitely really changed. This was written back when he was like a straightforward, strange comedian, and the opening of this was quite funny. I had a look through the photos and the captions were quite funny, but I didn't even get to the end of the first chapter. I just think there are so many books out there that I want to read more than I want to read this one, so I'm going to let this go and I'm going to unhaul it. So that's 2 unhauled already. Next, I tried Ray Parlour's book, The Romford Pelé, and again I was very, very tempted to keep this. Wow, it's weird as well. I read the preface, I read the introduction by Arsene Wenger. I should say that I have followed Arsenal slightly at times. My dad used to have a season ticket and I did used to go, not in Ray Parlour's time. I actually support Blackburn Rovers, so I'm mildly interested in this book and Arsenal, but not interested enough, I don't think. So I did realise that Ray Parlour was a player for Arsenal when they won the Premier League title. There was a season where they were undefeated. They didn't lose a single game in the season in the league, so I was really interested in that part. So I actually skipped from the first chapter, which I wasn't finding very interesting, looked at the pictures, found the part where he talked about the undefeated season, read that. I genuinely don't think I'm going to get a lot more out of this, and I think my time could be spent reading a lot of books that I would rather read. So I'm going to unhaul this free book that I got free with the magazine of Ray Parlour's autobiography as well. I'm hoping that in the other 3 books, the one about the cat, the one about Danny Wallace, and the one about James Acaster, I'm going to find the next book that I want to read, and hopefully that's the end of the unhauling. We will see. I will also tell you in the next part of the video if I've made a decision about the story of childhood. And if you have an opinion about it, let me know it in the comments down below. Hi again. A couple of days have gone by now since I started my try chapter. And yesterday I did make the decision what I was going to read next. I also finished my Poirot book, which there will definitely be an upcoming review of because I absolutely loved it. Spoiler alert. Yes, I had 3 more non-fictions to try. They were these 3. I tried Join Me first, and I really, really want to read this. I read the first part of the first chapter, I decided I definitely wanted to read it, and I even thought that I might start it then and there, but then I thought I'd better try the other books just in case. So definitely keeping this one. I possibly might read it next. Then I tried James Acaster's Classic Scrapes, and James Acaster is a comedian in the UK. I think I've already mentioned that, and he's a comedian who I find very, very funny. And this is a book that sort of tells the story of his life, like one scrape at a time, one situation that he's got himself into at a time. So it's really, really funny. So I read a couple of the scrapes and I knew that I really wanted to read something funny. That's what I'd been thinking when I read Join Me as well. I thought, oh, this is going to be good, this is going to be funny. But this was even funnier and it was more what I was in the mood for. So I read quite a bit of this yesterday and even more of it today, and I'm actually on page 172 now. So I think it's possible I might finish this today or tomorrow, making it my 3rd non-fiction of Nonfiction November. This is the book I've chosen to read. I will probably read Join Me afterwards unless I've gone out of the mood for comedy. I did really, really briefly look at the beginning of Dewey the Library Cat, and I'm definitely going to read this. It's definitely a keep, but I was not really in the mood for something sort of heartwarming and emotional like that. I was in the mood for funny, so I've started one of the funny books. I'll definitely read the other funny book maybe this month. I might read this month if I become in the mood for like a sentimental book about cats. So these three are all definite keeps, and I'm going to put these two onto my possibilities pile over here, ready for the rest of this month. I'm still not sure what to do about the story of childhood. I think, to be honest, I've unhauled 3 already, so I'm not too worried about unhauling this, but I do think that this could well be an unhaul. I'd like to give it more of a chance. I'm going to keep it on the shelf minimum for the rest of November and keep it on my pile of possibilities, and hopefully I will try a bit more of it, and when I've tried a bit more of it, hopefully I'll have a better idea of whether to unhaul it, and I'll let you know in a later video. We had sort of half success in finding something I wanted to read, and half of the books have been unhauled, so that was really positive. 3 books unhauled is a good result. Another potential one that may get unhauled but not sure yet, and 3 to definitely keep and that I will very much enjoy reading. And this one I am really enjoying. I was reading it in bed last night and I had to actually put it down because I kept laughing out loud, and it was a bit disturbing to me and my husband getting to sleep. I even sent myself into a coughing fit because I was laughing so hysterically at one point. So I highly recommend James Acaster, especially if you've seen some of his comedy already and you know what his humour is like. Really enjoying this. So that is the end of this particular try chapter for Nonfiction November, and let me know in the comments what you think. Should I have kept some of the ones I unhauled? Which ones do you think I should read next? And let me know, what are you reading in November? I would love to hear from you. If you have enjoyed this video, please do give it a like. Please do consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I will hope very much to see you all again soon for another video all about books here on Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Bye for now.